Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everybody. If you've suffered from these things before, I think all of us have at one point, sleep issues, stomach issues, all of that, just not feeling right sometimes. What do we usually do? We go to the doctor, we grab a med, but what if you could take something that is natural and so simple, and it all comes under the category of indigenous medicine? Well, we're going to talk about that today, and he's the expert on that, indigenousmedicine.com. And he is Douglas
.net.
.net. You know, I was thinking that, and I'm like, whenever I think it, I should double check it. Douglas Becker is back with us on the program. Douglas, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Good to have you back. You are somebody who practices Balinese and indigenous. You embrace the indigenous culture, right?
Yeah. Not necessarily Balinese. I practice Tibetan medicine.
Okay.
But indigenous medicine all over the world is pretty similar.
So before we get into these remedies, and I'm excited to hear just something simple that works instead of gravitating toward putting chemicals in your body, i.e. meds. How do you define indigenous medicine?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask that.
Oh, you know what? We've asked it before, but I want to reset everything for everybody else.
Yeah, that's right. Native medicine arose with the people in the land that they lived in. Yeah, so native medicine all over the world, basically in their tradition usually happened as a moment of revelation, where they were given their entire system all at once by some angelic being of some sort. And then over thousands of years, they tested it and tried it and proved that it worked.
Native medicine really gives a very clear picture.
Yeah, native medicine.
How long have you been doing this?
About 20 years. Yeah, Tibetan medicine, particularly about 10, 12 years.
When was the moment where you tried a native medicine alternative to traditional medicine where you realize, oh, game changer in you, and what a difference it made?
You know, I was practicing naturopathic medicine. That was pretty a particular developed system that's called bioterrain assessment. And I had taken some classes in Tibetan medicine, and I had some of the remedies, and I thought I would try one of the remedies on my patient. They were presenting according to what Tibetan medicine would consider warrants that medicine. I also knew what we would normally suggest based on really specific supplements, nutraceuticals. And so I gave them this medicine, which was, just a little ball of, compacted herbal formula. And the person had better sleep. And within about 3 days, all of their symptoms disappeared. Things that would have required a bunch of supplementation, nutraceuticals, lots of intervention to eventually create some kind of shift. So it was pretty incredible. And so I started more and more utilizing Tibetan remedies. I went deeper in my studies, and I still, part of my studies touched upon some things that are utilized in indigenous medicine, such as the use of certain fats for when their system is dominant off or dominant on. In modern physiology, we'd call that anabolic dominant or catabolic dominant. And I'll tell you one story. I had a friend, and she called me over to her place, and she showed me her arm. She was very kind of embarrassed, nervous, hadn't told anybody. And she rolled up her sleeve on her arm, and all along her back of her arm were these big tumors, like the size of gumdrops, the classical like tumors all on her arm. And From a physiological perspective and from indigenous medicine, I kind of had an idea that she might be constipated, because a lot of constipation will tend to create an anaerobic situation in the tissues, which can cause growths. So I just asked her if she was constipated. She goes, "No, I'm not constipated." I said, "Well, how many times a day do you poop?" And she said, "Well, I poop about once every 3 days." And I said, "Okay, well, it sounds like you're constipated." I said, "Why don't you do this? Don't worry, don't be so nervous. Take 3 tablespoons of olive oil in the morning, and let's see what happens." So 2 days later, she called me. She wanted to come over. She came over the next day. All of her tumors were completely gone. And it's a testimony of how simple things can be. Another person might have taken another route and led them to all kinds of side effects and maybe even a worse condition. And all I was looking at was basically what the result ends up being when you're constipated. She also kind of had like an off disposition. So when you're anabolic dominant, you're anaerobic dominant. You don't have a lot of oxidation, and this is in indigenous or native medicine kind of considered to be an excess of earth and water in the system. And oils that are liquid at room temperature turn you on. And usually with this off disposition, you're also constipated. So, another idea to look at is if a person has constipation, instead of trying all these many different things, they might first start trying having a couple tablespoons of olive oil in the morning. It can really make a huge shift. Also, for instance, if someone wakes up and they're kind of tired all the time, they don't have much energy, they can't really turn on, they might consider backing off of the butter and coconut oil if they're doing coconut oil or butter, and have a few tablespoons of olive oil in the morning.
Wow.
And the reason is because this is something that was more recently discovered by a doctor named Emmanuel Ravici. He was the pioneer of cell membrane lipid research, and he spoke 6 languages. He was a genius. He lived to be 104, I think, and worked every day of his life for more than 60 years, and had incredible results with cancer. He discovered that, and he also had about a week going across the Atlantic Ocean when he came over to the Americas on a boat. He conversed a lot with the Ayurvedic master who happened to be on the boat with him, and had confirmed a lot of the things that he had discovered. And his system very much kind of sounds a little bit like Ayurveda. When his medicines, he would use like gold infused sesame oil, and the heaviness of the element would go to a particular tissue depth, and the oil would shift the chemistry from being off to on, for instance, in that particular example. So yeah, so just having some sesame oil or some olive oil in the morning, and stop butter and coconut oil for a week, a lot of times people's energy will come completely right back. They'll be on again. And the opposite is true too. Sometimes people are driven. They go, 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 go. They can't stop. And they do all these things, and even to the point where they start to take pharmaceuticals to get a good sleep. Where if they were to stop eating, say, fish, fried food, oils like that come in nuts and seeds, or like nuts and seeds themselves, olive oil, and started to back off of that, and in the later part of the day, eat more butter and coconut oil, that in itself should actually take care of that sleeping problem. The trick is to not go too far. When you're waking up tired and very slow time getting up out of bed, you've had a really deep sleep, then that's when you can start to incorporate some of the nut and seed oils, olive oil, whatever, fish in your diet again, and start backing off of the butter and coconut oil and start having a more balanced diet. So these two different kind of ways of dealing with things can save people millions of dollars and sometimes their lives. Like chasing after something when really the imbalance of their fats in their cell membranes is what the issue is. And there's things that happen once you're primarily off or primarily on. It affects the oxygen flow into the tissues. It affects the pH of your blood. It affects the water movement. So these observations were made thousand years ago. But this is what I'm referring to is something that was just discovered 50 years ago. And he ended up having some issues with the FDA and AMA. They took his license away when he was 95 for making his own medicines that were a few dollars a day that replaced some other medicines that were hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a day, cancer medicines. And they gave him back his medical license when he was like 98.
Wow.
Amazing, brilliant guy, Emmanuel Ravici. So the difference with indigenous medicine is that each individual needs to be looked at, and this is the problem when we give, for instance, advice about nutraceuticals. Your blood, there's eight different places that vitamin D is used in your system. When they do a blood check for vitamin D, they're checking one of those 8 places, and your body can actually reject vitamin D. It can reject it if you're too catabolic dominant, if you're too on all the time, or if your sugar is high, because sugar is also taking calcium out of your small intestine into the blood, just like vitamin D. So your body's going to reject vitamin D. And so a lot of people will go in, they'll get their blood checked, they'll see their vitamin D levels are low, their doctor recommends, or their naturopathic doctor recommends, or holistic doctor recommends that they take a bunch of vitamin D to get those levels back up. And it's absolutely ass backwards. It's absolutely not taking into any consideration that the body is actually making a decision about whether it's going to take in vitamin D or not. And so, every system is different. And what you can look at every system as being dominant on or dominant off. And if you start there, everything else is way easier. Everything else is way easier to deal with.
And that vitamin D situation, Douglas, how would you know that the body is rejecting the vitamin D? What tests? I know that you said there's, I think it was.
Yeah. There is, you can't really test. I mean, the thing about blood tests is that blood tests are showing the concentration of certain constituents in the blood. It's not showing why they're there. Okay. So the body has a compensatory power to decide what stays there, what gets absorbed, what builds up, what doesn't. And so all we can do is guess about why it's there or not there. Okay. When you do a blood check for vitamin D, you're also not really looking at everywhere that vitamin D is used. That particular test in particular is really weak. So you can say you had like deficient vitamin D. There is no actually base level of vitamin D that they can say to begin with. So, but say you have lower amounts, you might look at if your blood sugar is high. If your blood sugar is high, your body's not going to be holding on to vitamin D. And if you pump it with vitamin D, what will happen is it'll mess up your thyroid glanding. And there's even been cases of people ending up with thyroid cancer because they're pumping the vitamin D, the other thing is that, vitamin D is every vitamin or mineral turns you on or off. Okay. Vitamin D is one of these vitamins that turn you on. So for instance, say you're like someone that's really driven, you're a little bit like angry and short and super cut and you're go. You can't turn off, right? and you go to some practitioner and say, oh, it looks like you're probably B vitamin deficient. You should take vitamin Bs. So B12, B6, B1, those things turn you on. They don't turn you off. Okay. So now all of a sudden your problem's worse. Magnesium, calcium, they turn you on. They don't turn you off. Even though a lot of people use magnesium and calcium, there's a product that's been popularized that has magnesium and calcium. The effect of that is short term because it actually is, it's filling in the gaps where the sterile fats are supposed to be in your cells. And it's not long term. So it won't last very long. Vitamin D is another thing that turns you on, makes you fiery, just like the sunshine. Yeah, turns you on. So people are taking vitamin D, B vitamins, and other things, and they can't go to sleep at night. So now they're taking pharmaceuticals to go to sleep. So the whole realm, that whole realm, and I learned this not from indigenous medicine. I learned this from biotrain assessment, where you can actually measure things and understand what's happening in the system. I'm not the only person that believes this, like for instance, the holistic, the main naturopath for the Hollywood movie stars, that he's one of the students of the same teacher I had as well. The understanding of how serious it is to push nutrients. You can push your chemistry with nutraceuticals. You can push it and it can kind of hold it there for a while. And you're gonna really wear down your body. Vitamin D will make you age really, really quickly if you're a fiery guy, if you're always on. It'll make you age. You won't have time. You won't be able to sleep. You'll have more diarrhea, all this stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I would say there's a good amount of, I have a lot of intelligent people coming to me in my private practice. And I would say at least 60 to 75% of their problem is that they're supplementing. They're over supplementing. You can
Wow.
trace their problem completely down to the fact that they've got this program in their head that they need to take more and more and more of this thing. And now they're trying to just figure out how to fix everything because they have this one issue. Whereas if they backed off of that, they would no longer have that problem. The balance of turning on in the day and off at night is really super important. If you don't rest, you're going to have problems. Yeah. What happens is you end up primarily having heart issues and kidney problems.
Scientifically proven too, for people that don't get enough sleep, eventually it can lead to major heart issues.
Yeah.
That's been
I mean,
over the years.
it's that's what happens. You don't end up having a lot of flus, because when you have a lot of what's called essential fatty acids, they radially go around the cell and they let things in and out of the cell. So your immune system can get into the cell easily, where viruses would replicate. Yeah. So they seem really healthy. They go. They're never sick. They do the work of several people. And at 60 years old, they drop of a heart attack.
Yeah.
So, and then the other side is when you're always off, and that's what you end up creating is an anaerobic situation. And a lot of those people end up with heart tumor cancer.
It's such a delicate balance. And like you said, we look at supplements thinking that we're doing the right thing for ourselves. Hey, you know what? I'm probably not eating right. So let me take this. Let me add this to my, my daily routine. I'm hearing more and more so many great things about garlic. I take a garlic supplement. I love garlic, fresh garlic, and whenever I can add it, I love it. Tell us about the benefits. Is that on your radar at all? In terms of garlic being good for you?
Yeah, you froze up for a second. I think it's just on I think the recording actually has it. Fine, but garlic, one of the main amazing things about garlic, that's not very well known, is that it helps your whole systemic compensatory power of your body work better. Almost always. It reduces stress. It reduces what we call the wind. It reduces the size of what we energy channels, the energy that passes through us that makes it kind of like, for instance, if you use garlic before you take a flight, or and after you get someplace with it, because when you move, when you get stressed, when you move, when you have kind of this like rough period of time lifestyle, your wind gets higher, meaning that the energy, kind of the stress buildup starts to like compensate the container that your body is designed to withstand. And so that's one of the incredible things about garlic. At once, if you can balance out your wind, it can have incredible effects. Now in Ayurveda, garlic is also considered to possibly, if it's overused, to be able to, it's considered to create some kind of fogginess of clarity about what the body should do or not do. So there's kind of a balance there. There's kind of a balance there.
Wow. I love the fact, Douglas, that you do look at both sides, where too much of something is not good. And here's why. You give the example, and then the other way around. You have a link you mentioned before we got started today. What's that link for?
Oh, that's just a way of connecting with people who would like to hear more about what I do. I think it's a free little super simple booklet. I have another booklet I'll send after that that'll cover a lot of what I just talked about with the essential fatty acids and turning on, and the sterols and turning off paradigm.
Sure. Give us that link. We'll put it up on the screen as well.
I didn't hear that. What did you say?
Oh, I said, can you give us that link and we'll put it up on the screen as well?
I emailed it to you.
Okay. All right. We'll make sure it's up there then. No worries.
Yeah, it's not a simple link.
Gotcha. Okay.
You can go to my website. My website's indigenousmedicine.net.
Yep.
And I'm happy to give a free 15-minute consultation. I also wrote a book which was recently revised. I think I have a copy of it right here. This is my book. If you can see it. Oh, it's yeah, the
Background's picking it up. Yeah.
background's picking it up. But here we go. How's that?
There we go. Yep. Principle of harmony and healing.
Yeah. And Dr. Anita Chinnick-Song there, he's the top right now in spreading traditional Tibetan medicine.
Wow. Yeah. Why would you want to take pharmaceuticals when you don't have to? And I believe we've had this talk before, that they have their place when you need to take them. I know your brother had an issue, and regular meds were involved. It was a heart issue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a place, for that. But if you can circumvent it by taking something that would be native, like 3 teaspoons of olive oil every day can take care of a number of different things. Why wouldn't you do it? I'll start tomorrow.
As long as you can sleep and you don't have looser stools, you're not getting too fiery.
Yeah.
Some people are naturally wired like that. They're just fiery people. They go. They need more butter.
Yep. And that goes against what we've always heard too. Like, butter's bad for you. Don't. No.
Yeah, that's definitely
right. And
there's a whole history around that. I think it's a British Journal of Medicine, British Medical Journal actually put something out a while ago about that. We talked about that.
And then what happened? What happened when the butter scare came? Then it pivoted over to taking things that are like butter. They're synthetic. And then it came around again. Don't take that. Now go back to butter. So,
another thing too, on the other side of the spectrum, a lot of people take a lot of antioxidants because they feel that free radical oxidation is kind of evil. You need a certain amount of free radical oxidation to be alive. And if you're off all the time, you can't get going. Like a lot of times people have like an aunt or grandma or uncle or something that's just there on the couch. They can't really get up and do anything. And they're like, oh, you should take some of these antioxidants, that'll really help your health. So when you're when you're primarily off, taking antioxidants is like a teacher of mine said, throwing water on a drowning child. It is not the thing to
Wow.
do. And it can cause them to end up having hard tumors and cancer.
When
So
you
you
say
sh-
an antioxidant, can you give one example?
Well, yeah,
real quick?
there's like the thing, for instance, called pignogenol, or I mean, there's like when I'm talking about strong antioxidants, a lot of times people have $50 to burn in the health food store, and they're like, hey, what's your strongest antioxidant? And they get this little bottle of like really strong antioxidants, concentrated something, and they start taking it thinking that that might help them with their issue. And it's not the right remedy if they're off. Yeah.
Gotcha.
If they can't turn on. Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff today. Good insight. And if you want to learn more and just talk with Douglas, learn how you can make that change, indigenousmedicine.net. Douglas, always great having you on. I appreciate all the details, and I'll be picking up the olive oil real soon. I appreciate that. All right. We'll talk soon. Thanks for being with us.
All right. Yeah. Nice to connect. Thank you so much for letting me be here.
I appreciate it. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, I mean, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.